Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I have a special guest again with me this week who I'm really excited about. This week, we have Todd Sarna on the show, and he is a psychotherapist and parenting expert who has spent over 20 years helping high-achieving parents, which we all want to be, bring real sustainable peace into their homes. And his approach is not about quick tips or being the perfect parent, thank goodness. He works with families who have done all the reading, tried every tool, yet still find themselves stuck in this conflict, overwhelm, and disconnection spiral. So he has a practice called Transformative Parenting Process, which helps parents move through these power struggles and emotional blowups to the real trust and calm that comes into a household when we bridge the gap between knowing better and living the actual peace. So Todd, thank you for being on the show. I'm super excited about this. Before we
Yeah.
begin with all the information, can you tell them where they can find you?
Yeah. I mean, pretty much everything is on our website, www.transformativeparenting.com. It's a long one. Sometimes I regret making it so long, but it captured kind of what I was trying to do. Transformativeparenting.com has our socials, has a master class for people who are new to our work. So yeah, that's usually the best way.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. So we're going to dive right in so that we have enough time to answer all the things. Um, so I did an episode a couple of weeks ago about attempting to help your children find internal peace. So it was really about having peaceful children and giving them the space to be peaceful children. But I think a part of it that was missing was, what does it look like to be a peaceful parent? And how is that different from just being calm on the surface? So in your expertise, what does it look like to be a peaceful parent? And how do we do that without just looking like we're calm on the outside?
Yeah, that's a big one, right? That's a big question. I The reason, my practice is transformative parenting. The process that I do with people when they work with us individually is a 12-week process where I'm usually working with both parents, whether they're together or not. Sometimes they're not together anymore. Sometimes it's a single parent. It's designed like, to me, the word process is really important here, is that you're not going to be perfect and you're going to have bad days. But I find that like one size fits all solutions and quick fixes don't work. And so that we should see it as a process. So like with kids, them becoming peaceful, which I know is not exactly your question, but for the kids to become peaceful, that to me is they're not born um, with the ability to tolerate feelings. They're not born with the ability to kind of control their energy or regulate their nervous systems. And they need to learn that over time. And so I think of that as three different regulations that we help them with. One is physical regulation, which is just the easiest, simplest one. Get their energy out, let them run, let them play. Now, if they're on screens all the time and things like this, they might not be doing that. So that's one of the side effects that people don't always explicitly say. They need emotional regulation. They need to be able to feel their feelings and process them and move through them. A lot of times that involves them crying and getting their energy out, their feelings out, right? Which we all know as adults, when we do that, we just feel better, right? We're like better problem solvers when we just come to that acceptance and we let go. And a lot of times that's crying. Kids don't want to do that any more than we do, right? Like I do. Like I'll watch a sad movie just to make me sad if I know I have a whole bunch of gunk
Mm.
inside, right? But we don't always like feeling those crappy feelings inside, right? Those frustrations. Well, kids don't. And our job is to like be a guide and help them feel it and process it and get it out. And then there's also nervous system regulation that kids need, which is, it's obvious to parents if their kid hasn't had enough sleep, or if they're overstimulated, or if they haven't had enough to eat, they're going to be all out of sorts in their nervous system. And so our job is to help get them enough sleep, get them some healthy food, try to help them not be too scared, too overstimulated, because we're trying to regulate their nervous systems. Like that's our job. Now, the reason why I answered your question that way is because that's also true for us.
Mm.
And that's how I think it happens for us. We need to be paying attention to, are we getting our energy out, or have we been sitting behind a screen? I know my fiance and I, we work at home and we're both in front of the screen all day. If I get to the end of the day and I have not gone for a walk, or I haven't gone to the gym or something, like, I have energy inside that I need to like move, you know? So that's part of the answer, I think, Carrie, is like getting that physical energy out. Now, do I have frustration in my life? Do I have emotions that are stuck? Am I not moving through them? I need to do that too, whether that's with my partner, with a therapist, journaling, anything I can do to kind of move through, have my tears when I need to, and nervous system. Am I meditating, or am I taking walks? Am I doing breathing exercises? Am I doing something to kind of just regulate my nervous system? If I'm in partnership, one of the best things I can do is when one of us comes home, we just have a good long hug, you
Mm.
know? They call it hugging till relaxed, or the welcome home exercise, you know? Belly to belly, chest to chest. I'm just here to help you relax. You're here to help me relax for a minute. Let's just connect and relax. That is one of the most nervous system settling things we can do. So it's a really long answer to your question, but the first thing I think of is that, how am I dealing with the regulations in my life? Because if I'm not doing it, I'm not able to help my kid do it, because we're really linked. And if my nervous system is all off and I'm not processing my emotions, well, then I can't really help guide you through it. So a lot of what I do is, one way or another, trying to help parents do those things they need to do, right? So they can
Yeah,
show up the
and
way their child needs.
I love that so much. And I think that something that can be really difficult for parents is that we put all of this pressure on ourselves to do this for our children, right? So like the practice that you take your families through, it's saying, not that you're putting the pressure on them, but they put it on themselves. It's saying, I'm gonna take accountability for this, and I'm gonna do better, because it wasn't necessarily taught to me. And so I think
Absolutely.
sometimes the struggle can be, I'm teaching myself this, but I want to teach it to my child in tandem.
Right.
So how do parents do that when they don't really even have the tools themselves?
Yeah. No, again, it's a great question. And I think to give you a simple answer probably wouldn't be telling the truth. It is a process. Um, I think that part of what I got from your question that I would go to is this kind of conflict versus deficit model, which I talk about all the time. Stan Tatkin, really well known couples counselor who was a mentor of mine, talked about this. So let me make it practical. One of the most important things to understand about children is they are a completely logical outcome. Their behavior in the moment is a completely logical outcome of what's going on around them, what's going on inside of them. It's not a random thing that they wake up and they're like, I just want to frustrate mommy today. If they're not doing something, it's probably because they don't know how to. In the
Hmm.
moment, they can't figure it out. So if my attitude was, my kid's being bad, I got to make him stop, that's a conflict attitude. And this isn't just like maybe spiritual or feel good. This is also just really practical, you know? But if I see it as, oh, my kid just doesn't know what to do, I know that my job is to be a guide to help them figure out what to do. And if they can't do it yet because their little 4-year-old brain can't do certain things at all, like if they wanted to, well, my job is to bide a little time until they can, right? But it's a similar kind of answer to the last thing you asked, is that's true for us too. Usually when we don't know what to do with our kids, that's a natural thing because maybe we didn't get it, right? This
Hmm.
all loops together. So I have to start off with compassion for myself. Maybe I didn't get this. Maybe that's why I don't know how to do it. When I don't know how to do something, that leaves kind of a vacuum. And if you know what I mean, like that
Hmm.
leaves like this open space, and that open space is going to get filled with all of our junk. Okay. It's going to get filled with like the thing my dad did that I didn't like, but now all of a sudden that voice is coming out of my mouth. Or it's going to get filled with that bad parenting advice I heard over on this thing over here, but I'm going to try it, right? So I guess the heart of my answer is to understand the conflict versus deficit, right? Be kind with your child because they probably just don't know what to do. Be kind with yourself because if you don't know how to do something, maybe it's because you haven't had to deal with it before. You haven't had to think of it before. But then your job is to fill that gap. Your job is to fill the gap of what you don't know how to do. And again, that I might be able to provide that answer for you. I've done that with a few thousand people, but I might not be the person. You might find it through a podcast. You might find it through another guide, but find that guide and find a narrative that makes sense to you. Not a one size fits all solution or a today my kid's doing this, so give me a 3-step solution. Tomorrow my kid's doing this. Find a narrative that is complete, that makes sense to you, that resonates, and then set off on that path and fill that gap, that vacuum, because when that vacuum exists, it's just going to get filled with kind of yucky stuff. Does that make sense?
It's a great analogy, and I've never heard anyone say it like that before.
Oh,
That
good.
idea of yes. So thanks for that. That idea of, it's not that your kid is being combative. It's not this conflict. It is they don't know how to do something. And it's interesting because I think that in that space, when we don't know what to do in that parenting process, and they don't know what to do because their little brains just don't have the information, we're literally sitting in the same seat.
Yeah,
So it's like this mirror effect that's happening. And so we're frustrated because we don't know how to do something. We're frustrated at them because they don't know how to do something. And so it just becomes this place where we're frustrated. And as you said, what do we do when we're in a space where we're emotionally dysregulated? We go back to the patterns and habits that we know. And those happen to be the ones that are the junk that we don't want to fill that space with.
totally.
But the
Totally.
space is there. So we're going to fill it with the things that are our habits.
Totally. And our our children do not in any way need us to be perfect.
Mm.
Right? And that comes up so much. I've worked with so many people, and especially moms. They they have added social pressure. Dads have never had exactly the pressure that moms do, and I'm not just saying that. Dads are very important. We're very important. But even in grad school, when I was studying developmental psychology and attachment theory and stuff, they didn't talk about dads. But dads are important. It's just moms have so much extra social pressure. Like Time Magazine had a cover a little while ago that said, "Are you mom enough?" on the
Oh,
cover, and it was like that. You can look it up. It was so controversial. This woman is like in her kitchen. Her kid looks like he's like 8. I guess he was like 3, but he's on a stool breastfeeding on command while mom is walking around the house or something. Like the implication was, if you're not doing this, you're probably not mom enough. It's just
mhm,
ridiculous. The kid had like
mhm.
fatigues on and a backward baseball cap. But my point that I'm straying from is they don't need you to be perfect. But regarding what you're talking about and what I said, they just need you to be the one who's aware of this. They need you to be the one who says, okay, I don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. I just have a better chance of figuring it out than they do, right? Because I'm an adult and I have resources. I can listen to the Peace podcast. I can read Todd's book, whatever. I can, do that stuff. My kid, they just need to be a kid. I need to be driving the car. They need to be in the back seat, being able to play and look around and be a kid. And so they don't need you to be perfect, but they just need you to be able to see, okay, I did that. That sucks. I don't like it. But that's my conscience telling me to learn about it, do it differently, do it better. Right. And that's all they need.
Yeah. And you made me think of something as you were talking because there is that tendency to feel like you need to be perfect, not even just in parenting, but in life in general. And social media adds this whole other pressure because we have all these people that we tend to compare ourselves to, et cetera. Um, and what I've found, and I would love to know if you see this as well in your practice, is that in trying to be this example of perfection and all of the weight that we as parents put on our own shoulders to be perfect, we are now pushing our kids to be perfect because they're a representation of us. So therefore, if they're not perfect, then we're not perfect. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts and advice on that new phenomenon that I feel like is really
Oh,
showing up
I
now?
don't know how new it is, but I do think it's being accelerated, you know? And it used to be here in America, like America and Canada in a way, like I feel like we were at the forefront of that sometimes, you know, and because other cultures are like, that's dumb. We can't be perfect, you know? Like I think in our social media and all this stuff, I don't know if that's true anymore because we were just watching a documentary last night or a travel show about Korea. And oh my goodness, the amount of plastic surgery going on, even with really young people, and this like need to be perfect because if you're not perfect, you won't have followers and all this stuff. It's crazy, but I've been a psychotherapist for 17 or 18 years. I've been a parenting coach for 22. I've worked with families and things longer than that before I was licensed and stuff. And I've never seen a perfect parent. I've never been a perfect parent, and I have a couple $100,000 of investment into developmental psychology and training, and 3 decades total of. I'm not perfect. I have bad days. Perfection is not possible, and you know that. And if you love somebody who's a parent, or if you love your child, like like what would you feel if this person you love thought they had to be perfect? What would that
Mm,
bring up for you? What would you say to them? Well, maybe be that person to yourself too. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
like I said before, I do think it helps us and it helps our kids if we generally try to be on the right path, that we have a good narrative, we have good guides as we need them, and we walk on the right path. But perfection isn't possible, and I just don't even think it's desirable, or it's what life is about. I think a lot of life is about figuring out where you're not whole, figuring out where you have a deficit, figuring out where you aren't maybe being the fullest potential you can be, and figuring that thing out and working on that. I certainly think life would be boring without that myself. Now, maybe I don't want to be going through it the way I did in my teens and my 20s and stuff, where it was like mistake, 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 mistake. Like maybe I don't really have the energy for that anymore. But I kind of think it makes sense that like part of life is like becoming more and more who you are. Now, as a parent, I want to try to not burden my child with too many things that are not who they are. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to
Mm,
give them too many patterns, too much baggage that they don't need. But I don't think that they're going to go off into the world being perfect. I just want them to be secure in themselves and feel like they're a good person and they want to be around good people, and that they have certain skills and capacities that, when put together, like being able to be adaptive and feel their feelings, and then I think it's going to work out. So I don't know if that was an answer to your
yeah.
question, but it's what was inspired in me to say.
It absolutely was. And I think that's a beautiful segue into the work that you're doing with attachment theory, because
Mm,
I think that um oftentimes there's this like insecure attachment that kind of happens with parent and child where they're frantic. They need their child to be perfect. They need their child to be a representation of them. And I know that your work, the heart of it is in that attachment theory. So how does the secure attachment between a parent and a child create the foundation for peace and for that the conflict that you spoke about earlier to not
yeah.
necessarily be as a parent?
it's the gateway to everything else. I call my approach attachment first parenting. And it took me a long time to figure out just how I could say attachment first, alpha led parenting, because I really believe in this idea of the parent as a leader, not as a dictator, but as like a papa bear or a mama bear,
Mm.
that your job is just to take care of them until they can take care of themselves, and to be a good benevolent dictator, to do what's best for them, not what makes them happy all the time. But there's so much controversy out there about attachment parenting sometimes because it's so misunderstood. Um, Attachment parenting itself is a term that's owned by one particular person, Dr. Sears, but attachment science is not controversial. Attachment science just says, hey, look, there's a lot of factors that lead into your child growing into their fullest potential. Obviously, if they're born in a bad neighborhood with uh, not a lot of safety or poor educational opportunities, that kid does not have the same chance. They could still be secure, but they have some things stacked against them that they have to overcome that are extra. But I work with very affluent families a lot of the time. And honestly, even though these kids, it's not the same situation, a lot of these kids are going off into the world not prepared because they haven't been told no. They haven't been, they don't know what consequences are. And sometimes they have bad outcomes, at least at first. Attachment science is not controversial. It says, whatever those other factors might be, the number one factor in how people have healthy, secure relationships in their lives, the number one factor in how they're behaving today, whether they're a child or they're your spouse or they're you, and the number one factor in how they grow into their greatest potential is how secure they feel in their primary relationships growing up. Now, again, saying that can evoke out of parents like, oh, that means I'm screwing up my kid because I yelled at him the other day or I'm not
Mm.
perfect. No, secure attachment is not easy. It's never been easy. It takes time. I wish I had a warmer, more spiritual sounding term, but I say it takes a lot of reps, you know? Like if you want to become good at something in life, no matter what it is you do, like I'm a coach and a psychotherapist. That took a long time to get good at it, where I feel like, hey, I'm not perfect, but I know what I'm doing, you know?
Mm.
Takes a while. I was scared to death when I started, but I got reps and I got reps and I got reps, right? My son played baseball growing up, and he was an incredibly talented baseball player, and he could hit the ball wherever he wanted to hit the ball. He had a lot of natural ability, but he also loved it so much. He got a lot of reps. He would just get in there and get in the batting cage because it was fun to him. Nobody was making him do it. Becoming a secure individual is not something that happens because you are a good parent today. It's something that happens because over years, the child gets a lot of reps of when they're scared, when they're overwhelmed, when they're tired, when they're feeling too much, when they're feeling not enough, when they're sick, when they're scared, whatever, that they mostly get the response of, you are loved, you're not too much.
Mm.
You're not, you are enough. And I'm not going to be perfect, but basically, I'm going to tell you that because I believe it. And I'm going to keep telling you that because I believe it. Now, I say attachment first because secure attachment that is growing over time is the core. Nothing else is possible without that. If if we're best friends and I think you're mad at me or you don't get me right now or we're not I don't care what you have to say in terms of advice, right? I I I'm mad at you right now. You could tell me the best most productive advice in the world and right now I don't care, Nicole. I don't no, right? But if we are
Sure.
connected, I am going to listen to you. I'm going to be open to you. It opens up everything else. But security also involves limits, saying no, but doing it in a kind way. That's not opposing, right? I can tell you no, and I can mean it because I know it's not best for you to have ice cream for dinner. I can tell you no, But I can also be, but honey, I know you're really frustrated and you really love ice cream, but no. And I don't, that is part of what helps make you secure. That is part of what helps make you adaptive. So that's a whole bunch of different aspects of secure attachment to me. But the most important thing there is it takes reps. It takes time. Children are born completely insecure, like so insecure, they don't even know you're going to come back in the room, right? They don't
Mm-hmm.
have what we call object permanence. You leave the room, they're, mommy's gone. She doesn't exist anymore. That's literally how it feels, right?
Yeah.
And so they have to go from that to like the time they go off to college or go off into the world. That's a long time to gradually move towards, okay, I feel good in myself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense as an answer. It's a long one too.
I love all things that are coming from you that you keep saying that's long, that's a long website, it's a long answer, but all of it is amazing. So keep doing that.
I'm just self-conscious because if you let me go, we're here for 4.5 hours and it's like people are
You
like, okay,
know,
stop talking.
that's what edits are for, and you can pick out the best part.
Ah,
So
yes.
good to go.
I have the
Um,
best editor. He saves my life sometimes. I have an
well,
editor
you're
from I had an editor for my book, Allison, who was just like, Todd, get rid of that. And I'm like, thank you. But then I also have an editor who does my video and audio stuff, and he lives in Bangladesh, and he's just a miracle man.
love that. Um, so I hear you saying that attachment is important and that we still have to parent our kids. Like we
Yeah.
have to build that attachment with them. We have to have that relationship with them. They have to know they can trust us, not
Mhm.
just trust us in that we're going to do what we say we're going to do when they like it, but we're going to do what we say we were going to do regardless, even if
For
that
sure.
means telling them no, keeping them safe by saying no, etc.
For sure.
Um, something that I'm noticing that feels very prevalent to me, and I don't know if it's just on my radar, but if there's just a lot more of it, but there's people who have subscribed to gentle parenting, and then there's people who think they have, but they're doing what is called passive parenting. And as an educator and being in the education world in schools, etc., I see a lot of what people think is gently parenting, because that's a whole, there's science behind that, and there's books and there's all the things, but it's really just being present in the room and not really parenting at all. So what are your thoughts? What have you seen? Tell me all the things that you feel about this.
Oh yeah. No, let me answer for 2 hours. You know, I've been doing this a while. I've had a couple thousand clients work with me directly, and that's not people at webinars and conferences and classes and things. That's like working with couples. Usually people are doing pretty well for themselves, not necessarily filthy rich, but I've worked with celebrities and I've worked with athletes. But a lot of times I started my practice in Mill Valley, California, which is like Marin County, which is like tech founders and people living there and commuting into the city. And I've been doing this a long time. And I was talking to a woman who's a pediatrician who's been doing it for decades the other day. She's seen the same thing. It's a pendulum that goes back and forth, and it's like clockwork. You can set your clock to it. Is people have been like, maybe I was parented in a not great way, and my parents were mean and they were spanking or whatever, which was really prevalent when I was growing up. And then they grow up and they're like, the kids grow up and they're like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be gentle. Awesome. That is great. That is a great intention. I'm not mad at you. If you want to be a gentle and present parent, yes. But like I said before, that is not opposing to having limits and, having consequences, right?
Mm.
But then people think it means what you said, that it's just like passive, or it's free range is what people were saying, which people have said that about attachment theory for decades. Like, it means that you breastfeed your kid until they're 8, and you know, keep them in the bed until they're 16, and you go off and live with them in the dorms in college, and you helicopter and whatever. Attachment science never said that. There is
Mm-hmm.
nothing in attachment. Does attachment science say, hey, if you can breastfeed, that's really great? Yes. But that's kind of duh. Like some women can't, but it's not just about the nutrition. It's about the holding and the skin to skin contact. And it's just very reassuring for children. So it's not like those things are bad if you want to do them. Our kid slept in the bed with us for a while, but it wasn't because we thought we had to, is because his room was on the other side of the house and we just thought it was more convenient for a little while, right? But when people do it without limits, when they do it without what I call the back end, the front end is always attachment. The relationship has to be there first. The front end
Mm-hmm.
is attachment first. The back end, the thing that balances it out is healthy teaching of consequences and the healthy setting of limits based on what your child needs, not on punishing, right? There's nothing
Yeah.
controversial when you're doing it that way. But what I find is in households, it polarizes. It's almost always mom is saying, they need more attention. They're not getting enough of us. We're so busy and they need, right? And then dad, not always, but dad often is like, they need more boundaries. They need more limits. We're spoiling them. They're both kind of right, right? But they're just not executing it well. And because they feel like they're not listening to each other, they polarize. So mom gets more and more entrenched in her position and feeling like she's mad at him. And dad gets more and more entrenched in his position. But what the kids really need is kind of what they talk about in Buddhism, the middle path, right? I did a parenting series about this in like 2004. I called it the middle path of parenting. Maybe I'll do it again. But they do need that attachment and that relationship, and they need to feel secure, and they need to have us build a culture around them that makes them feel more secure more often, which is not just us, it's a village and a culture we build around them. But
Mm-hmm.
they do need to know what they do has impact, and they do need to feel their feelings and process them and get them out when they're feeling frustrated. Those are not opposing things. But what happens and obviously we're right there right now, is gentle parenting doesn't work because gentle parenting means no limits. So therefore, let's go to F around and find out parenting, which is something I didn't even know about because I'm not on TikTok,
Yeah.
but all of a sudden it was just flooding my inbox and reporters were asking me about it. And I found it on Instagram and I saw Dr. Becky talking about it and I put out a video about it myself. But it's like, wow, okay, now we're going to traumatize our kids and call it consequences,
Mm.
right? Like, no, a lot of the examples, but our kids don't need us swinging back and forth. It takes a little bit more energy up front to figure out how to be a balanced middle path parent who does put attachment first but then evens it out and balances it with consequences that are taught correctly and limits that are set with compassion. That takes a little bit more work up front, especially because most of us didn't experience it ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if my parents didn't do it, and loved my parents, but they did not do those things, okay? If I don't know how to do it, then I'm going to be susceptible to swinging back and forth between gentle and either in my house or because that's what the parenting advice is today on Instagram, right? It's a little harder at first to find this place. This is what all my work is about. I don't think I'm the answer for your kids. I think I'm the answer for you to try to be the answer for your kids, right?
Mm.
And I call the book Common Connected Parent, and I call the process a process because I know that takes a little bit of time. You have to go through a little bit of a process. But the good news is, and I really believe this, is once you find that balance, once you find that middle path approach where you have the front end first, but you're balancing it with that back end in the right way, it's easier. But more than that, it feels better because you're
Yeah.
off that hamster wheel, of the pendulum and the back and the forth and I call it all the time whack-a-mole parenting, that whack-a-mole game, right?
Yes.
It's like my kid's doing this. Okay, go search the internet and now chat GPT for like what to
Mm.
do when my kid's doing this. Okay, whack. Okay, but now my other kid's doing this. They weren't doing that before. Okay, now that first kid's doing this. And that is exhausting. So yeah, to change any habit, and you know this, I've listened to your work before, like to change anything in your life. Like I got out of working out for a while because I had a heart problem, and I had the problem when I was working out, so I didn't work out for a while, and boy, was it hard getting back into it.
Yeah.
But when I did, oh my goodness, try to keep me away from the gym now. I can't. And it's not because I want to get all pumped. It's because I feel better when I go
Mhm.
to the gym and I lift weights. I just feel better. You couldn't get me to stop now because I know it makes my life work better. It's
Yeah.
kind of like that with any habit. It is hard to make the investment and make the shift into a different way and into a different narrative. And you have to find the right guides and the right narrative. But when you do, it is easier. And boy, it's so much better to not be racked with guilt about like all the things you feel like you're doing to screw up your kid, right? Because that is one of the biggest questions I get. When I was an early therapist, I used to be asked all the time, nervously at the end of a first session, people would go, "So Todd, do you think I'm crazy?" Like seriously, people ask you that all the time, and
Oh,
you're like, "No, not really."
no,
Um, not really. That would be a
not
bad thing
really.
to hear from your therapist. Not any more than we all are, right?
Right.
But boy, do parents Google more than anything else, and now probably ChatGPT, am I screwing up my child? You know?
Yeah.
But it is so much. If you find the right groove and you find that middle path, I'm telling you, it is so much easier, you know?
Yeah, and it's so funny that you brought this up at the end of your answer because it was going to be my next question to you,
Mm,
but let's say that um I'm divorced and now I'm a single mom, or I'm co-parenting with someone else, or my child is 12. Or, like all these other things that are running through parents' heads right now, as I'm sure that they're listening. So they're like, well, I've already screwed it up because there aren't two parents in the household. And it's going to be really hard for me to do that middle parenting because I don't have somebody to balance between what feels instinctual and what isn't instinctual. Or my kid's already 12. I've already ruined their life. So what am I going to do now? Right. Like
you have
what
not.
would you right. So what would you say to those parents who are actually sitting in the guilt right now thinking, "Oh my gosh, I did it all wrong."
Well, I mean, I heard a couple different questions in there, I think. So help me out and make sure that I answer your question. Like,
Sure.
yeah, I was raised by a single mom, and I certainly did not agree with her a lot of the time. And at the time, I would have told you all the things she was doing wrong, you know,
Mhm.
probably as a upset 13-year-old or something or whatever. But I've told her many times over the years, and I mean it. Like, man, parenting is hard when you have two people. Um, it can be hard. It's never been easy to raise a kid. It's never been easy to produce a child that thrives in life and grows into their potential. And now with screens and social media and all these things, there's extra levels and layers of difficulty. But I've said honestly to my mom many times, I can't believe you did that. I don't know how you did that. Thank you, because I had one kid. You know, she had three, and my dad wasn't around a lot. And so that's hard. And I would say if that's your situation, which is like the kind of the first question I was kind of going to answer is, um, if you're with your partner, if you are with your spouse and you're co-parenting together, you need the things that I try to teach people all the time. Build a culture in your home that has lots of attachment, rituals, and predictability and structure and all these things. Like, parenting is not supposed to be a free range thing. It's supposed to be a culture that you build. That most parenting is what you do proactively to avoid the problems in the first place. It's not supposed to be the whack-a-mole. Okay. So the first part of that is building practices and predictability and rhythm and structure. My dear friend Kim John Payne, who wrote the book Simplicity Parenting and the Soul of Discipline, he's so good at talking about rhythm and ritual. You need more of that if you're a single parent, right? You need more of that. But the second big, 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 big thing is You have to build a community. You have to build a village.
Mm.
That doesn't mean I don't get into politics when it comes to parenting, but Hillary Clinton wrote a book like in the 90s that was like, it takes a village to raise a child, which was an African proverb and is and it was so mind numbing to me. Whatever you think of her, like that people were having this big argument at the time, like it does not take a village, it takes parents. It's like, those are not opposing things, guys. Yes, I am a parent. Nobody is the answer for my kid more than me when they're growing up, okay? And his mother. And we are the answer. We are the main ones for sure. But oh my goodness, do we need a village? And I think a lot of what parents are struggling with now these days is, even though it's a paraphrase of a quote that I put at the beginning of my book, even though we have more ways of connecting than ever, people are feeling more isolated than ever. And that includes parents, whether there's two of them there or one. They feel
Yeah.
alone. They feel isolated. Yes, you are the answer for your child's kid, your children. No, you don't need to have 100 people in your life, but you do need a good core of parents with kids that you get along with, that you agree on things. Like my son had 4 boys that were his closest friends growing up in grade school. He had lots of friends in class. He had an amazing teacher. All the kids, they got along so well. It was like one of the things I'm most grateful for in life, that teacher in that class, because he was in a Waldorf school and they
Mm.
were with the same core group for 8 years. Um, Having those 5 families, the 5 families that we were included in, where I knew I could send my kid to your house and they were not going to be on
Mm.
screens. They were not going to be on social media. They were going to be playing by the creek and climbing a tree and whatever. And do you know how often my kid complained to me about lack of technology? 0
Exactly.
times. Seriously. He never brought it up. And that doesn't mean you have to have a school, parents out there, where it's on a farm in a wine country kind of place like we are. Yeah, I know, first world issue, but you can find a cohort, you can find a group of people. And for me growing up, I can look back and go, my grandma was there, my nana, my
Yeah.
aunt and uncle were a big part of our village. My mom had good friends around us, you know, and building out that village is absolutely necessary, because if all the pressure is on you, that you have to be the 24/7 on mom or dad or whatever. I've worked with single dads. Um, that's too much. Yes,
Mhm.
you're most important, but you're meant to have a culture built around you and you're meant to have a village built around you that supports you. And I don't know how to do what you're asking without that, you know?
Mm.
It's just too much. Did that answer your question?
That absolutely answered the first part. That was beautiful. And what happens if you're already at
Oh,
a
got it.
a
Yeah, that was the
12-year-old?
second part. I go off on my rants and I had the second part in my head for a while and then it drifted away. Um, I don't know what to say because it might sound inauthentic to you, parent out there, that my answer is speaking to you like I know you, because obviously I don't know you. I don't know all your exact circumstances, but
Mhm.
I have worked with thousands of parents. I have worked with people struggling to get by. I worked with people like kids in group homes. I've worked with parents that come to me and it's very hard for them to afford getting coaching or psychotherapy. And I've worked with, again, the most fabulously wealthy, oh my God, I don't even relate to it people.
Mm.
And I'm telling you, wherever you are on that spectrum, married, divorce, rich, poor, um, I'm telling you, my richest, most resourced clients feel like they're screwing up their kids. Okay.
Yeah.
And that experience tells me that I could probably say this with a degree of knowing and authority. You probably haven't. You probably aren't. When I hear a parent that worries about it, I know you have a conscience. I know you care. And so that right there, I'm not, I'm serious. I got a little teary eyed just now for a second. Like I felt emotion. I don't even know who I'm talking to right now, maybe. But the fact that you care enough to think that or to worry about that tells me you probably are good enough, right? Winnicott, D.W. Winnicott, the famous developmental psychologist, had a term, again, just talking about moms, didn't talk about
Mhm.
dads, but he had the term good enough mother. And his
Mm,
point all those decades ago was your kid does not need a perfect parent. Your kid needs a good enough parent. And that usually means a parent who cares, who feels it in their heart when they do something that's not in alignment with their heart, with their spirit, with who they want to be.
yeah,
But the main thing about that is notice it, feel it. If you need to cry about it, if you need to write a nasty thing in your journal about it, if you need
yeah,
to talk to your best friend or your therapist about it, do it. Get it out, feel it. But then it doesn't serve you after that. And it
yeah.
doesn't serve your child after that, right? Now, I know easier said than done sometimes.
Mhm.
But if you were some kind of mythical, perfect parent, I sometimes think of the story of the Buddha, and it's told different ways, and I'm not a Buddhist, but I learned a lot of Buddhism, and I was influenced by a lot of things in my earlier in life about that, and I love Buddhist psychology. But like the Buddha was protected behind these walls. He was a prince, and he didn't know about suffering, he didn't know about death, he didn't know about poverty, he didn't know about sickness, right? And then I'm joking here a little bit, but he snuck out, and he was so shocked by all those things that it put him into like a psychotic state. Now that's the joking part. Don't send me emails, Buddhists. I love you. Peace be upon you. Um, but he really didn't handle it well because he had no idea what these things were. And I don't know if that metaphor makes sense, but and then he had to sit under a tree for a while and like sort it out in his head. If your kids went off into the world with this like perfect experience of mom or dad or both are just perfect, how would they
Right.
handle friendships or love relationships or bosses
Mhm.
that weren't perfect? They wouldn't. That is not what they need. They need to be adaptive and resilient, you know? And that means we F up sometimes. I don't know if I
Yeah,
can curse here.
it's okay.
We mess up, but then we fix it,
Yeah,
and the message is I mess up, you mess up, but we fix it and we move on and we love each other. That message is what your child needs, and your child can't get that message without making mistakes, right? Now,
yeah,
if you're making the same mistake every day, well, maybe get on that, okay? Figure that one out, because at some point your kid's like, okay, mom, you apologize 10 times every day for that one. I'm exaggerating, but
yeah.
yeah, figure that out, mom. Figure that out, dad. I do, certainly. I find things get on my kid wants to like my kid was like 2.5. He lied to me to my face for the first time, and it was ridiculous, right? And this is a person who knew that that's normal at that stage. This
Mhm.
is a person who had worked with parents, who had trained, who developmental psychology, trained with Gordon Neufeld, one of the most brilliant clinical developmental psychologists in the world. I know this happens when they're 2.5. My kid looks right at me, and I think it was something like, "Did you eat your peas?" They're right there, Carrie Nicole. Like, they're right there. I know the answer. But I'm like, "Hey, did you eat your peas?" And he goes, and if you're listening, I'm like looking like with this like psychotic look, like, "Yes, dad, I did," you know? Oh my goodness, did that trigger me.
Yeah.
I just got upset inside. Now, I didn't yell. I might have had a look on my face for a minute, but I breathed. But I was teaching parents in a parenting class based on Daniel Siegel's work, Parenting from the Inside Out, how they should journal. I trained with Dr.
Oh,
Siegel on this, how they should journal when they're lit up, when they're triggered. And I went, and oh my goodness, I remembered my dad getting mad at me when I was little about lying about something, right? And it was a total innocuous lie, right? It
yeah.
was I knew he was mad, and I just wanted to make him not mad, so I said something that wasn't true, and oh my goodness, right? That's all the stuff that was coming out of me because my kid looked at me and said
Mm.
something, right? Now, me having that feeling led to me going and journaling about it, me connecting it with that experience, and me kind of releasing it and letting it go, and then me being able to teach other people about it by giving that
Yeah.
example 20 years later, right?
Yeah.
So that's life. Me being perfect in that moment and being a saint and, oh, my child is having a developmental moment where he's realizing he's a separate individual for the first time. And so he's experimenting as a social experiment. What if I told dad a lie? What would he do? Would he know I'm lying? Like, I didn't have that
Yeah.
perfect moment. I had
Yeah.
I'm mad at you, kid. You lied to my face. You little psycho, right? That's the feelings that were coming out of me. That is necessary as part of growth. It brings the stuff up that you haven't sorted yet, and it enables you to have a chance to sort it.
Love that. What a great way to come to the end of this episode. Even though I'm so sad it's ending because I'm like, I
Yeah.
want more information.
We'll talk again sometime.
Of course. But before I let you go, if there is a listener on this call or on this podcast who is really just thinking to themselves, I want to start this, but I don't know what my best next step is. In your opinion, what would you tell them to do? What is their best next step?
Yeah. I mean, I certainly don't think I'm the only good resource out there, but I'll speak to the resources that I have. If it all depends on timing, where things are for you, what your resources are in terms of time, how much money you want to invest or time you want to invest in things. I have a YouTube channel out there, Transformative Parenting with Todd. I don't put any commercials on it. I don't monetize it. Go there, sign up for our newsletter on transformativeparenting.com. Once a week, I put out an article I think will help you. Don't usually sell stuff. If you want a low cost solution that I'm really proud of, I do have my book coming out in November of 2025. It's called The Calm and Connected Parent. Here is a fake version um, to show you, a mock up. It's being printed soon. I don't know. It's the lowest cost way I could think of to like provide something for people where I try to pour everything I've learned about how to be more of a calm, connected parent into there. There's also a companion course that's kind of low cost and a workbook. And for people who are really interested in working with us, because I know 5% of the people out there are just like, no, work with me. I need help.
Mhm.
Work with me. There's a masterclass on our website. Masterclassforparents.com is also the direct URL. 20 minutes long, tells you a little bit more about what we do. Not for everybody, but and we only have space for so many people. But that's a good resource for those people who are kind of like me. When I find out about something and I'm all, ooh, this is the answer I'm looking for, I'm kind of a dive all in guy,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
depending on where you are, those are the range of things that we try to offer. But transformativeparenting.com, our socials are on there, and the newsletter sign up is on there.
Love that. Thank you. We also will link all of that in the show notes, as I said earlier. So if you need a fast, let me quick click this link and get all the things that I need. It will be there in the show notes. And Todd, you have been phenomenal. I'm
Oh,
so
thanks.
glad
I've had
that
a
you're
good time. I
here.
really like what you're
Yeah,
doing. So I was looking forward to this. I think we scheduled it a while ago.
you did.
And so when it came back up, I'm like, oh, I listened to that show. I really like that. Oh, that's great. So I'm glad we could talk, and I'm
Yeah,
sure we will again.
same. Thank you so much. And to my listeners, as always, remember that knowledge gained and kept to yourself is selfish, but knowledge shared with the world could just be the catalyst that they need for the change that they need to break free from the bondage that they're experiencing. So please go like and subscribe to my channel. Share this message with anybody that you know that is a parent or knows a parent so that they can get all the information that they need to live a life of peace. Thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate you, and I'll see you again next time.